Hello friends, welcome to another episode of Chris Reads His Blogs. My name's Chris Armstrong, this is my blog, let's dive in. Today we're looking at one about my journey to testing conference speaking. Ouch, there's been some rejections. Listen to the sound from deep within and be brave enough to suck at something new. Now Thursday, February 27th, 2020, aside from being like 3 weeks before we ended up having to work from home the whole time thanks to some sort of pandemic, but it was a date in and of itself that I will always treasure. It was the first ever Geordie Test Atelier, and I made my speaking debut at an external testing conference. Russell Cracksford, my testing peer brother, he was one of the organisers, and it was a wonderful event. So I thought I'd take the time to note down a few things that led to getting this opportunity. So here we go. Okay, why would I want to talk? I'll be honest, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a software testing conference until 2013, which was a full 9 years after I first started testing. It was at Eurostar in Gothenburg, so starting really small. Special props to Michael Bolton, Marat Pahiavi and their committee for organising something that was so life-changing at the time. The speakers whose talks stood out for me at the conference were Zecha van Hesse, Pekka Marjamaki and Alexandra Kasapu, who I believe won the do-over session that year. The whole experience blew my mind. I found it such a positive and uplifting experience that I felt wholeheartedly motivated to give something back. So after the closing remarks, they invited people to answer the call for papers. I didn't know what that meant, but I felt that I wanted a piece of that. If I could feel so motivated from such an experience and some wonderful sessions that I'd attended, why wouldn't I want to be able to inspire others? So how'd you come up with an idea? Well, that's quite a loaded question because we all have ideas, but being a tester is, all our ideas, they come with questions, right? So especially me, I'm an internal catastrophizer. Great. So I started to think about my journey as a tester, what I could bring to the table that many others wouldn't. I'm less a teacher and more of a storyteller, but I have an idea. Then there's imposter syndrome and other reasons that we won't even entertain the idea of submitting that abstract, actually hitting that publish button. Submitting an abstract. What the hell is an abstract? Well, here's the thing. If you don't know what a call for papers is, then how was I going to know what an abstract was? But in general, it was like filling in a form, suggesting your ideas and takeaways that you hope that the delegates will have. In retrospect, I can highly recommend a few things to look at if you want to submit an abstract. As you will learn, I still need to take this advice. Yeah, I didn't take any of this advice before I first submitted an abstract. So Richard Bradshaw has done a cool thread on these. It's a few years back. The link will be in the comments. Rob Lambert did a nice article on it as well. Rick Marsalis, who was the program chair back in 2020 at Eurostar, he's also done some. And there are loads. Next, I can't write an abstract. Yeah, I'm not so good at this. My main thing is that I'm better in person than in prose. I find that when I make a proposal in person, I go on an interesting and meandering journey to who knows where. The testing peers call me the tan gentleman, so Until sometimes we find the right route. That is, the journey's more important than the end of the start sometimes, right? Now, I knew what I wanted to talk about. In fact, I even knew the format that the talk would take. I knew what slides would look like. I knew what I would say in the session. But condensing that into something that made my proposal actually enticing, not so much. And there's a few little extra bits here. I don't like giving away too much. I don't like the idea of spoon feeding people and treating them like they don't already know these things. And that has got me in trouble with rejections. People go, I don't really see this point. And it's like, oh, you need to see it, but you don't want to see it. So I need to work through that. Now, the first rejection, unsurprisingly, happened with my first abstract. I submitted to the only testing conference I'd ever heard of, and I was rejected. The feedback wasn't great, and we'll go into that a bit more later. But I did ask for it because I think you can only learn by getting feedback. And I didn't deal with this feedback well. I dismissed anything that came out that was remotely positive, and I only dwelt on the negatives, the reasons that it wasn't accepted. Then, I did nothing. I really ceased any personal development. My drive to dive into the community, my drive to give anything back, I plateaued. If anything, I dove down. The reignition only really came through my attendance 3 years later at Test Bash Brighton 2016. I started a blog. Having rediscovered some drive and the wonderful world of testing Twitter, I decided to try and blog. I'd started to share with my testing colleagues a bunch of blogs that I found thought-provoking, interesting and directly applicable to our situation. And in doing so, I started this blog that I'm reading to you right now. So, write about an idea. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought I'd give it a go. I wrote my first blog post, which I've recorded a video on. I shared it with some friends and some colleagues. I blogged some more. The second post I actually wrote was directly related to that first proposal that I had. I still hadn't really got closure on that idea. Then I went on to post about different things like test mobs, staying relevant, pro wrestling and testing. Hey, haven't dropped that one. And many more things. I came across an idea that could be a talk then. Writing blogs is a wonderful discipline to have. And it can be a bit of an echo chamber, but also it can serve as a way to explain your way of thinking, what you've been up to, or even what you aspire to. But how many of them actually turn into something that you might deem worthy of being a talk at a testing conference? Well, trial the concept in a little meeting, a testing meeting, a meet-up with some friends. I had the distinct pleasure in my old place of running monthly test team meetings at my workplace, and the goal for those was always to bring something to the wider test team together so we could share and grow. I said together a lot. Together. There's no better place, therefore, to introduce new ideas. At one such meeting, I ran a meeting based on 2 personality type quizzes, the Myers-Briggs and the 5 love languages. And then we had a little chat about them afterwards. Then I thought I'll include it in the blog, because after attending a coaching session, I included references to the latter, the 5 love languages, in a quiz about my blog post. And I then wrote an abstract, but in classic last-minute Chris fashion. I didn't even save a copy anywhere outside of the call for papers form. So here's my big failing. I'm a touch last minute with some of these things. My history teacher at school used to call me Billy No Work, in reference to the classic moniker Billy No Mates, because I wasn't very good at providing iterative work. But I did deliver at the end. I have an awful habit of leaving things to the last minute, and some of that's due to ADHD, I latterly realised. Anyway, I managed to submit something, and I think that's half the battle. And then I was invited by a testing peer friend, Simon Pryor, to go and speak at his office's test team meeting. Anyway, I made slides, I tried to give the talk in a test team meeting, and it wasn't great. I wasn't great. But I got feedback. Try again somewhere else. As I said, I was invited to speak elsewhere, but it never happened in the end. But it forced me to prepare better, to iterate. I put out a few feelers to speak at various meetups, and in such conversations I got in touch with some more awesome testers who offered to help me. Receive rejections, but always ask for feedback. Once again, I received a rejection. But in any of these situations, receiving feedback is so important to know if there's any appetite for the talk at all and why the submission wasn't successful. The Eurostar process again was too last minute, even though that talk was formed, the abstract was subpar. What I can tell you though was that the European Software Testing Conference process was really different. We had a Skype call, remember Skype? For which I felt horribly unprepared. But nonetheless, Marit and I think it's Julia put me at ease, and I was able to talk a little bit more about my ideas. And Marit actually tweeted this. The 5 love languages as a communication heuristic to help us do our work better. After all, creating software is really about people working together and understanding one another. Applying this at work has helped me, Christoph Skier, read people and adjust accordingly. Already she'd done a more succinct job of talking about what I was trying to talk about. Give a talk at an internal conference. Well, some of my testing colleagues then had an idea to run an internal conference, and they invited me to submit to speak, knowing what I'd been trying to do. I probably wrote my best abstract to date for it, but maybe they were just being kind. Anyway, the talk was well received, and it gave me new impetus to drive on some more. There was something here. So I applied to more places. Well, I threw my hat in the ring for Agile on the Beach, Test Bash's continuous call for papers, and as well as this new conference in Newcastle. And back once again to Eurostar. The good people at the Geordie Test Atelier only went and invited me to talk. It says, Kristofsky are coming at you next, asking, what's love got to do with it? There are many useful heuristics applied in testing, but communication is arguably the most important. Hey, I still receive rejections. Even with that good news, I did receive another rejection. A lot of the feedback I'd received from any submission was that there was a nice idea, but it wasn't clear. In a proposal, you are encouraged to list some key takeaways that the attendees will have. And I think I've been a little bit too abstract here. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but that side of things is definitely letting me down. Anyway, giving the talk. The big day arrived. Russell put some nice pictures. There's proof that I actually really gave it. My good friend Sanna Fisser is there as well. It was awesome. I wasn't, but the experience was. I found the attendees engaging, and I really enjoyed myself. People were really kind, and I received more positive feedback. There's always room for improvement though, right? I received another rejection from Ministry of Testing, but with a caveat that this was an interesting idea and I should continue to work on it. Kudos to Richard Bradshaw for taking the time to give me that feedback, and I shall. And I did reconnect with him this year to see if I can maybe work something out with him. But I will be reaching out for more people for help, as I clearly can be an ideas man, but I feel like I can present well, but not great at writing those proposals. So try again. I am trying all the time. I do, and I've been successful. I've given a couple of talks in the last couple of years at Eurostar. I do have what I believe are good talks that are relevant. Keep your eyes peeled for those things. But I would like to just dive into a little bit around this feedback, because my experience, it sort of haunted me for some time. And I've seen other people talk about how much it can hurt. Ben Dowen, the full snack tester, he said that feedback is like a superpower. Build people up or cut them down, and it really is true. And I saw the other day Tristan Lombard put a cool tweet out that I'm just gonna bring up here if it wants to work. Let's see. Oh, he said last year was about removing best practices from work vocabulary, but this year constructive criticism has been replaced with actionable feedback, and I feel that in my bones. Too often people pass comment. They'll say things not relevant for me. I don't like it. How is this going to fit? Without something actionable, something that I can actually do about it. You've cut me down and you've given me no feedback. Actionable feedback. We need that in the workplace. We need to know if something isn't right, isn't working, or needs to be tweaked. Guide us in the right direction. We all want improvement. We all want things to be better. We all want everyone to succeed, surely. Actionable feedback. What a great term. I think there's going to be more to come with this. Testing Peers are doing a podcast on this, and I really, really want to keep this conversation going. What do you think? Give me some actionable feedback. Let's have a conversation about this going forwards. I think there's also stuff to be said about like how abstracts can be formed and created and put in a presentation for people who can present but can't write abstracts. I'd love a conversation about this. Get in touch. Let's keep it going. Thank you very much for joining me. Sorry it was a bit of a ramble. I'll see you again next time.